All right, so welcome to another deep dive, and today we're going to get into the world of attraction.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we have this article that we're going to kind of use as our jumping off point, and it's titled, Older Men Don't Realize This Attracts Younger Women. Do this to tempt her. High value psychology.
Okay.
No, I know that title. Yeah, it's a little provocative.
Catchy.
But we're not going to give any like pickup artist strategies or anything like that.
Right.
We're really going to just unpack the psychology of this. And
Right.
I think you'll be surprised by how much of this stuff actually applies to everyone, regardless of age.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to emphasize.
Yeah.
While the article might focus on a certain demographic,
Yeah.
the underlying principles of attraction are really universal.
Yeah, absolutely. And like right off the bat, one of the things that they mention is maturity and stability. And it's easy to kind of just brush that off as like, oh, they just want someone who's settled. But don't you think there's maybe like a deeper reason why those traits are appealing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Throughout history, a partner who could provide stability and security would have increased the chances of survival.
Yeah.
Especially for women who were often the primary caregivers.
So it's not just wanting someone who's boring necessarily.
Right.
It's like about those core needs.
Exactly. It's about feeling safe and protected.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty fundamental human need.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes beyond just like, physical safety.
Yeah.
I think it's about emotional stability as well.
Oh, absolutely. Someone who is emotionally mature
Yeah.
can handle life's ups and downs without losing their cool.
Right.
That could be so reassuring to be around.
Yeah, that makes me think about that point in the article about an older man being like a calming presence, like an anchor in a storm.
Right.
It's not about being, boring or predictable,
Yeah.
but it's that groundedness
Yeah.
can be really appealing, especially when, the world feels kind of chaotic.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Mm.
And speaking of feeling secure and confident, the article also emphasizes the importance of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And not just any confidence, but like a quiet self-assurance.
Right.
Do you think there's a difference between that and like arrogance or cockiness?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because that's something that the article really distinguishes between those two things.
Mhm.
It's not about needing to be like the center of attention,
Right.
It's
not about bragging.
bragging. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
yeah.
like a deep-seated belief in oneself.
Precisely. True confidence comes from knowing your worth, not needing to prove it. It's about being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And that kind of energy can be incredibly magnetic.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of like know people like that.
Yeah.
They just exude this kind of quiet confidence. They don't need to put other people down to feel good about themselves. That's what makes them so appealing to be around. Yeah, it's like their confidence almost gives you permission to be confident too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the article also talks about refined appearance.
Okay.
And I'm curious about this because it doesn't seem to be about like chasing youth or trends,
Right.
but more about how you present yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, we often hear that looks fade.
Right.
And while that's true to an extent,
Mhm.
I think what the article is getting at is the connection between how we present ourselves
Okay.
and how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, almost like putting effort into your appearance is like a form of self-respect.
Mhm.
And that in turn makes you more attractive.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Okay.
When you see someone who's well-groomed,
Right.
who chooses clothes that flatter them, that suit their personality,
Right.
it signals that they value themselves.
Yeah.
And that can be incredibly alluring because it suggests that they have standards,
Mhm.
not just for their appearance, but for their life in general.
It makes me think about scent too,
Oh,
which they mention in the article
Yeah.
has like a deep impact on our emotional memory.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Our sense of smell is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's directly linked to the limbic system,
Oh, wow.
the part of the brain that's responsible for emotions.
Okay.
That's why certain scents can just trigger these vivid memories
Interesting.
and feelings.
So it's not just about smelling good.
Right.
It's about creating a whole sensory experience
Yeah.
that can evoke all these positive emotions.
And make you more memorable.
Make you more memorable. And to bring it back to the article, like a man's cologne,
Yes.
that can linger in a room long after he's left
Exactly.
and create this lasting impression.
It's subtle, but it can be so effective
Yeah.
in sparking attraction.
Yeah. And speaking of sparking attraction, let's move on to a quality that I think is often overlooked.
Okay.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes.
The article highlights this as a particular strength of older men. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it would make sense that as we get older and hopefully wiser,
Yeah,
we get better at understanding and managing our emotions.
right.
As we navigate life's challenges, we learn to read our own emotions
Mm-hmm.
and the emotions of others.
Yeah.
And this emotional intelligence becomes such a huge asset in relationships.
Yeah, and the article specifically mentioned active listening, understanding unspoken needs,
Right.
responding with maturity instead of defensiveness. Like,
Yeah.
these are all hallmarks of someone who's emotionally intelligent.
Absolutely. Imagine being in a relationship with someone who truly listens to you, who understands your needs even when you don't explicitly state them,
Yeah,
and who can handle disagreements without resorting to anger or blame.
that's huge.
That's the kind of emotional security that can make a relationship truly thrive.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one might assume that as men get older, their lives become more routine and predictable. But the article challenges that notion.
Okay.
It talks about the importance of maintaining a zest for life and even a sense of adventure.
I love that. And I think this ties back to what we were saying about confidence and self-respect.
Okay.
When you're passionate about things,
Yeah.
when you're curious about the world, it shows that you're not just going through the motions.
Right.
It's incredibly attractive to be around someone who is engaged in life, who brings that energy to the table.
And they even talk about how, an older man can introduce his partner to new perspectives and cultures,
Yeah.
which is a far cry from like the stereotype of the set in his ways older guy.
Exactly. It's about having a growth mindset, being open to new experiences,
Yeah.
and continuously expanding your horizons.
Yeah.
And that kind of energy is contagious. It draws people in
Mm-hmm.
because it promises a life filled with adventure and discovery.
Yeah, and what's more is like a shared sense of adventure,
Yeah.
that those new experiences that you have together can actually strengthen a relationship.
Absolutely.
And this makes me think about honesty and transparency, which the article highlights as the foundation of trust. And it seems like it's suggesting that authenticity is much more attractive than trying to play games
Oh, for sure.
or maintain a facade.
I think you're spot on. Trust is the bedrock of any strong connection.
Right.
And that comes from being upfront, being genuine,
Mm-hmm.
and being willing to communicate openly even when it's difficult.
Right.
Because let's face it, no one wants to be in a relationship where they feel like they're constantly walking on eggshells
Yeah.
or wondering what the other person is really thinking.
Right, yeah. It's about showing up as your true self,
Yes.
both the good and the bad, and trusting that the other person will accept you for who you are.
Exactly.
Speaking of authenticity, the article also emphasizes the importance of happiness and positivity.
Okay.
Do you think there's a connection between being genuinely happy and being attractive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about the people you're most drawn to.
Yeah.
Aren't they often the ones who radiate joy and enthusiasm?
Yeah.
It's contagious.
Yes.
People who are happy with their lives and bring that positive energy to their interactions are naturally magnetic.
They even contrast that with moodiness or negativity,
Right.
and suggest that those traits can actually repel people.
Yeah,
Because who wants to be around someone who's constantly bringing them down?
exactly.
Yeah.
We're instinctively drawn to those who make us feel good,
Yeah.
who lift our spirits,
Yeah.
and who remind us of the beauty and joy in life.
And that brings us to another intriguing point from the article.
Okay.
Leadership.
Oh, interesting.
Now, before you jump in, they're very clear that they're not talking about dominance,
Okay.
but rather the ability to guide, make decisions, and take responsibility. What do you think about that?
I think that's a really important distinction to make because,
Yeah.
we often hear about leadership in a professional context,
Right.
but in a relationship, it's more about shared decision-making,
Yeah.
mutual respect.
Right.
I think what the article is getting at is that sense of direction and purpose. In a relationship, it can be incredibly reassuring to be with someone who can make decisions confidently,
Mm-hmm.
who takes responsibility for their actions,
Right.
and who has a clear vision for the future.
And they even use simple examples like choosing a restaurant without hesitation or,
Right.
having a plan for a date night.
Yeah.
It's about taking the initiative
It is.
and showing that you're capable
Yes.
and thoughtful.
And it's not about being controlling. It's about being a reliable partner
Yeah.
who can be counted on to navigate challenges effectively.
Right.
And, make life a little bit easier.
Now, this next one is a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
The article mentions social proof, which basically means that being respected by your peers and valued within your community makes you more desirable.
Interesting.
Do you buy that?
I can see how it would play a role.
Okay.
You know, we're social creatures after all.
Right.
And we're influenced by how others perceive someone.
Yeah.
So if a man is surrounded by people who respect and admire him, it's almost like a signal that he's someone worth knowing.
Yeah, like a built-in endorsement.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it goes back to that evolutionary need for security. If others vouch for someone, it suggests that they're trustworthy
Okay.
and likely to be a good partner.
All right. Are you ready for a potentially controversial one?
Let's hear it.
Financial stability.
Okay.
Now, before we get into that, I think it's important to acknowledge that the article isn't talking about excessive wealth.
Right.
It's not about being like a millionaire.
Right.
It emphasizes responsible choices
Yeah.
and the ability to provide security, not necessarily a lavish lifestyle.
I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
You know, financial stability isn't about being rich. It's about being responsible with your finances.
Right.
And having a plan for the future.
And in the context of a relationship, it can provide a sense of security and stability.
Absolutely.
Think about it. If you're with someone who's financially responsible,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of pressure off the relationship. You can focus on building a life together without constantly worrying about money.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly freeing and attractive.
Speaking of feeling free,
Okay.
let's talk about independence, another quality the article emphasizes. And it seems like it's suggesting that having a well-rounded life outside of a relationship
Yes.
is actually a good thing.
It is.
It's not about being emotionally unavailable. It's about having your own passions, interests, and a sense of purpose.
Exactly. Because if you're relying on your partner to be your sole source of happiness,
Yeah.
that can put a lot of pressure on the relationship.
Yeah, and it can be a bit stifling, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
To just be like completely enmeshed.
Yeah.
It's attractive to be with someone who has their own thing going on, who brings their own unique experiences and perspectives to the relationship.
I agree.
Yeah, the article contrasts this with neediness or seeking constant validation,
Right.
which, let's be honest, can be a major turnoff. So independence is about being comfortable in your own skin, having a life that you're proud of.
And that kind of self-assuredness
Yeah.
can be incredibly alluring because it shows that you're not looking for someone to complete you.
Yeah.
You're looking for someone to share your already fulfilling life with.
Right, and that's so important.
It is.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but we're just getting started.
Oh, good.
There are even more qualities in this article that we need to unpack.
I'm intrigued.
So stick with us as we continue our deep dive into the psychology of attraction in part 2. All right, so welcome back. We are in the midst of our deep dive into the psychology of attraction,
Yes.
exploring the qualities that make someone truly magnetic. And just as a reminder, we are using this article titled "Older Men Don't Realize This Attracts Younger Women, Do This to Tempt Her: High-Value Psychology." But as we're seeing, so many of these insights apply to everyone, no matter who you're drawn to.
It really is fascinating to unpack these qualities and see how they go beyond these surface level assumptions.
Totally. And there's more where that came from.
Oh.
The article actually had a lot to say about communication,
Oh, that's interesting.
which makes sense, right? Because you can't really have a healthy relationship without it.
Absolutely. Communication is key.
Right.
And the article specifically highlights clear and effective communication as something that older men tend to excel at.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I imagine that comes with experience, right? Like
Sure.
the more you navigate relationships, the more you learn about expressing yourself clearly, listening attentively,
Yeah.
and even having those tough conversations without things getting out of hand.
That's a great point. As we gain experience, we also tend to become more comfortable with vulnerability.
Okay.
We learn that expressing our feelings honestly, even when it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
can actually deepen our connections.
And that ties back to what we were talking about earlier with emotional intelligence, right? Like being able to understand and communicate your own emotions, but also empathize with your partner's feelings. That's crucial.
Yes, it really is. And speaking of building trust, the article also mentions patience as an attractive quality,
Okay.
particularly in older men. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an interesting point, especially in today's fast-paced world,
Yeah.
where instant gratification is often the norm.
Right.
Patience suggests a willingness to let things unfold naturally,
Yeah.
which can be incredibly reassuring in a relationship.
It's a refreshing contrast, isn't it? In
Yeah.
a culture that so often emphasizes speed and efficiency,
Right.
patience can be a sign of maturity and emotional depth.
Yeah.
It shows that you're not rushing to the finish line. You're savoring the journey.
And that can be incredibly attractive
Hmm.
because it signals that you're not just looking for like a quick fling.
Yeah.
You're looking for something meaningful that's built to last.
Exactly. Speaking of building something meaningful, the article also emphasizes the importance of mentorship, suggesting that older men can be particularly attractive by taking on a guiding role.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on this?
This one really stood out to me.
Yeah.
It's like a perspective shift, isn't it?
It is.
Instead of seeing younger men as competition,
Right.
it's about embracing the opportunity to share your wisdom and experience.
It's about fostering growth and connection rather than rivalry.
And I think it speaks to a certain level of confidence and self-assuredness.
Yeah.
A man who is secure in himself doesn't feel threatened by younger men.
Right?
He sees it as a chance to connect
Mm.
and perhaps even impart some valuable lessons.
And let's be honest, wouldn't it be nice to have someone in your corner who's been there, done that,
Yeah.
and can offer guidance without judgment?
Oh, that would be pretty amazing.
It's a valuable dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how this article keeps circling back to the importance of personal growth
Yeah.
and a sense of purpose.
Mhm.
That seems to be a recurring theme, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Whether it's pursuing your passions, setting goals, or simply striving to be a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
That drive to create a meaningful life is incredibly attractive.
Yeah. And it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you're not passionate about your own life, how can you expect someone else to be?
It goes back to that idea of like bringing positive energy to the table.
Exactly.
Right.
When you're excited about your own life,
Yeah.
you naturally draw people in
Mm-hmm.
because you're showing them that life is worth living to the fullest.
Right now, we've talked a lot about the qualities that attract others.
We have.
But the article also touches on something that I think is equally important.
Okay.
And that's understanding and embracing your own value.
That's such a crucial point. Because if you don't believe in yourself,
Right.
if you don't recognize your own worth, how can you expect anyone else to?
That's such a good point.
It's a fundamental principle of attraction. Self-confidence is contagious,
Okay.
and it often starts with recognizing your own strengths,
Yeah. Okay.
appreciating your experiences,
Yeah.
and owning who you are, flaws and all.
The article even suggests that too many older men doubt themselves, assuming they're at a disadvantage in the dating world simply because of their age.
Yeah, and that's where self-perception becomes so crucial.
Right.
If you believe that age is a barrier, then it will be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see it as an asset,
Yeah.
if you recognize the wisdom and experience you bring to the table, that will shine through.
Yeah, it's interesting how we often focus on the external aspects of attraction.
Right.
But what this article highlights is that true magnetism comes from within.
Absolutely.
It's about cultivating those qualities that make you feel good about yourself, like confidence, emotional intelligence, and a genuine zest for life.
And when you do that, when you invest in your personal growth and embrace your authentic self, it naturally radiates outward. It
Right.
affects how you carry yourself,
Yeah.
how you interact with others, and ultimately how you're perceived.
It's almost like that saying, confidence is the best outfit.
I love that, and it's so true.
Yeah.
When you feel good about yourself, it shows. It's
Sure.
like a beacon that draws people in.
Right. Now, before we move on to our final part,
Yeah.
I want to touch on one last point from the article, and it's about patience in relationships.
Oh yes, the idea that rushing things can actually backfire.
Exactly. It's so tempting in our fast-paced world to want everything right now.
Right.
But relationships take time to develop.
Mm-hmm.
They need space to breathe, to grow organically.
The article even contrasts this with the idea of seeking immediate gratification,
Yeah.
which can lead to making impulsive decisions that ultimately undermine the relationship.
It's like trying to force a flower to bloom before it's ready.
Yes.
It might look pretty for a moment,
Yeah,
but it won't last.
right. Patience, on the other hand, allows the relationship to unfold naturally,
Right.
allowing for deeper trust and connection to develop over time.
It's about enjoying the process of getting to know someone,
Mhm.
of building a foundation of shared experiences and mutual respect.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this part, from the importance of clear communication and emotional intelligence to the power of mentorship, personal growth, and self-worth.
Yeah.
And we've even touched on the value of patience and letting relationships unfold naturally.
It's been a rich conversation.
But there's still more to explore.
Okay.
Stick with us as we wrap up our deep dive into the psychology of attraction in our final part.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into attraction. You know, it's funny, I'm already starting to see my own relationships in a new light after unpacking all this.
I know, it's amazing how just diving deep into one article can spark so many different insights, isn't it?
Totally. And it's not just about romantic relationships either, you know? I feel like all of these qualities, like the confidence, the emotional intelligence, a zest for life, they can really make you more magnetic in all areas of life.
Absolutely.
Like whether it's friendships, work relationships, even just how you interact with the world. I completely agree. It's like we've been talking about this idea of like personal magnetism
Yeah.
and how that extends so far beyond just like trying to find a partner.
Right.
It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
Right.
And that naturally draws people to us.
Yeah, and that makes me think, we've been spending all this time talking about what makes someone attractive to others. But
Yeah.
what about like the flip side of that?
Yeah.
What about like what qualities do WE find attractive in others? What draws us to certain people?
That's a great question because it's so easy to get caught up in trying to figure out, what everyone else wants.
Right.
But it's equally important, I think, to understand our own desires
Yeah.
and what we truly value in a relationship.
Yeah, and maybe by understanding that, what we're drawn to, maybe we can become more aware of the qualities that we're projecting out into the world.
Yeah.
Like if I'm attracted to someone who is adventurous and spontaneous,
Hmm.
maybe that's a sign that I need to embrace those qualities within myself.
It's like that idea of if we want to attract certain qualities, we need to cultivate those qualities within ourselves.
Which brings us back full circle to personal growth.
It always does.
It really does. This whole deep dive has really shifted my perspective.
Mm.
I'm starting to see attraction less as like this game of chance
Yeah.
and more as a reflection of who we are and what we bring to the table.
I think that's really empowering
It is.
because it means we have the power to shape our own experiences.
Right?
We can actively cultivate those qualities that make us magnetic,
Yeah.
both to ourselves and to others.
It takes the pressure off trying to fit some mold or chase fleeting trends.
Mm.
It becomes about being authentically ourselves and allowing our best qualities to shine through.
And you know what? That kind of confidence, that genuine self-acceptance is truly irresistible.
Yeah.
There's like a magnet that draws people in
Yeah.
because it signals that you're comfortable in your own skin
Yeah.
and that you have something special to offer.
This has been such an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground.
We have,
From maturity and confidence to emotional intelligence and a sense of purpose, and even the power of patience and self-worth.
yes.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface, though.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. There's always more to explore, more layers to uncover.
Yeah.
And I really encourage everyone listening to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends, talk to your family,
Mhm.
or even just reflect on these ideas on your own in your journal.
Yeah.
What resonates with you? What insights have you gained?
I know I'm going to be thinking about all of this for a long time.
Me too.
And who knows, maybe our next deep dive will be inspired by one of your reflections.
I love that idea. Until then, stay curious and keep diving deep.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.